On number 15, they're asking to determine the sinusoidal function for each one of these graphs. Again, you're going to have to understand basically everything on this page, which includes the different parts of the equation and what they have, the effect they have on the graph. So somewhere where I start is to figure out whether I want to use sine or cosine. That usually depends on which is closer to the y-axis. If the center of the graph looks, if the midline of the graph is crossing close to the y-axis, I'll probably use sine. But if the top of the graph is closer to the y-axis, then I would probably use cosine. So looking over here, the top of this graph is really close to the y-axis, so I'm going to use cosine for this one. So that means I'm going to have to use I'll use the generic cosine A, cosine B x minus h plus k. A few of the easier things to figure out are the amplitude from the center to the top. Right here you can see it's 0.5, so I know that A is going to be 0.5. Then the midline is also pretty easy. The midline is right there in the center. It has not been shifted up or down, so that's just going to be 0 plus 0. Then what I'll probably do is find the shift. It's a pretty easy shift. This is going to be how close is it from the original center. So I know that it's right here, exactly this many units over. So what I'll try to notice here is that this is pi, so that means right there in half would be pi over 2, and that means half of this would be pi over 4. So I know there's a horizontal shift of pi over 4. So going back to my equation, I know that it's going to look something like x minus pi over 4. Oops. Now, this minus or plus is going to make it, is going to tell me whether I have shifted right or left. Because if cosine starts here, the graph that I'm looking at shifts to the right, so that means that's going to be a positive, since it's inside there. So x minus means to the right. Now all I need to do is find the period, well, not the period, I need to find b, and I can find that by looking at the period. So the period, as you can see over here, is 2 pi, because it starts just a little bit before 0 and then right before 2 pi. It does a full cycle. So there's one cycle. The other way you could do this period is 2 pi over b. If I know that the period is 1, or no, I'm sorry, if I know the period is 2 pi, then to find b, I solve for b by multiplying by b and then dividing by 2 pi, and so b would equal 1. So there's a few ways to do that. You could either do it this way, because you can find the period and plug it in, solve for b, or you can see that b is just the number of complete cycles in intervals 0 to 2 pi. So my entire graph equation looks something like cosine of this. To clean this up a little bit, I don't really need the 1 there, so that's going to look more like 0.5 cosine x minus pi over 4. And then I don't need to write plus 0 either. So So that's what that equation would be. So in the second graph, you can see that it's starting right there. The top of one of the waves is right there at the y-axis, which is very much like what cosine does. So it's a pretty good sign to use cosine. So then what I could do is, let's look at the amplitude and midline. I can see right away that the midline is not at 0. So the new midline is at -1. That's going to automatically put a -1 for the plus k, because that's the midline. Then I can see, since that's the center and the top is at 1, the amplitude right here, this is going to be 2 units. So my A is 2 cosine, and then I need to find the horizontal shift, if there is any, and then B, which I can find from the period. The horizontal shift is easy since it starts at the top. I don't need to shift at all. So I know it's going to look something like x minus 0. Then to find B, I'm going to have to look at what the period is. The period here is pi. So there's two ways of figuring out B. One way is I could do period equals 2 pi over B. Then, since I just saw that the period from here to here is pi, that's the period, I can put pi here and then multiply by B and divide by pi. So I have 2. B is 2. 2 goes here. The other way you could think of this is that B is the number of complete cycles in the interval 0 to 2 pi. Looking at this interval from 0 to 2 pi, I can see that 2 full cycles occur. 1 cycle, 2 cycles. So that's maybe an easier way to spot B automatically. So to clean this up a little bit, I don't really need the x minus 0, so I'm just going to end up getting 2 cosine of 2x minus 1. This last one, you can see right away, it's just like the one before. It starts at the top, so we're going to want to use cosine. Let's do some of the easier ones. The midline is 0 again. That makes that part easy. Amplitude also 2. Remember, amplitude from here to here, 2. That's my A value. And then no horizontal shift, since it does start at the top. X minus 0. So all I need to do is find B. So since I don't see pi down here, it's going to be hard to tell how many cycles happen in 2 pi. So I'm going to look to see what the period is. The period is 2. Okay, so the period from one complete cycle is 2. So I'm going to go over here, do period equals 2 pi over B. I know that the period is 2. And then to solve for B, what I do is I multiply by B, and then I divide by 2. Gets rid of that, so B equals, cancel the 2's, B equals pi. So this is going to be one of those equations that has pi inside of it. So to clean this up, 2 cosine of pi x, and that's it.